Logistics is definitely the main focus here. The logistics, the cost of the logistics, palletizing product, as simple as like having a spreadsheet, working on your computer and saying, okay, let's make sure that these aren't getting wildly out of control as we're having these negotiations. So it seems like a very basic thing, but you can kind of get excited and lost in the moment as you're growing, and it can turn into the worst thing for you if all those costs and the cost of logistics and the time and making sure everything is precise doesn't add up.
Do you have a story, Vincent, that you could share with the listeners here you guys went through as an entrepreneur that was a lesson to you that you kind of take today that makes you think differently of how you do business?
As you grow larger.
Welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, growing 1% everyday podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast, where we can discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and itself. Today, we have Vincent Bereta, the owner of Tres Lecheria, the only clean label individual package Tres Leche manufacturer in the US. Excited to talk to Vincent about his unique angle on how he does business, how he has placed his product in over 50 locations, and where he plans to take the business from here. Thank you, Vincent, for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. You got the name right, Tres Lecheria. Tres Leches is the product that we sell. So, but otherwise perfect.
And sell it incredibly well. From what I'm seeing from your website and a little bit of research I did, you guys are all over the Seattle area. You are able to purchase the product through the website now. You can pre-order online. Can you give me a little bit of background of kind of where this whole business came from? Where did the design of this clean package ideology of this food came from, and kind of how you got it into all these locations?
Yeah, sure. So it's actually kind of the second iteration of a business that we had prior to this. My business partner and I came from kind of more of like a finance sales background, and he came from a bakery background. And, we met just in kind of a roundabout way, but essentially he wanted to do like a clean label Mexican grab and go panaderia, and with custom cakes as well. And so that was kind of the first iteration of our business. It was just this brick and mortar where we were selling those types of products and then doing custom cakes. And then when the pandemic happened, all of our custom cake sales just cratered because, people weren't hosting events anymore. So like just going from half of our business, half of our revenue to just being completely wiped out, we were like, well, we have to pivot. So the Tres Leches cakes were selling really well. They were never not selling well. And at that point we were in one grocery store. And like during that time, during the pandemic, they're like, hey, can you fulfill all of our grocery stores? Because people love this product. They need grab and go. It needs to be in like a ready-made container, all that stuff. So we got into their stores, and it was like 25 stores, like right off the bat. So we completely retooled everything, focused on this one product, just went all in on developing the recipe and changing how the layout of our space to focus exclusively on making those. And then that's essentially where it started. So we still have the brick and mortar where you can buy the slices, and we even have whole cakes as well. And then we do wholesale as well, where, as you mentioned earlier, we're in between 50 and 70 stores. It kind of change, the orders kind of change weekly, but that's about the rough amount for now.
Love the background story. And I've always said that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. You guys obviously got handed an amazing opportunity there, but let's talk a little bit about the preparation. That's a huge shift to go from one supermarket to 25. How did you adjust the business when that happened to make sure that you could apply that level of demand?
Yeah, so essentially the bakery was initially set up for, daily baking. So daily grab and go items like conchas, and we had literally everything. I can't even, scones, like what have you. And then to have to go from that to go more production oriented and more like storage oriented, it took a lot of time and it took a lot of money. And it was moving, essentially having like 80% of the floor space being like where people could sit and order and grab their food, to now 80% or like more like 90% is kitchen production space. And then there's just like a little window at the front where people can buy. So those were just kind of the very practical differences. that we had to change. And then all of like the consumer packaged goods, CPG changes that we had to make with labels, making sure all the information was properly updated, going through all those regulatory requirements. That was a whole other issue. So it really was like starting a second business.
And the process behind that, I'm assuming, is painstaking. How long did it take you to really get ready for that process?
Oh man, it took us at least 3 to 6 months of solid work, but solid, like being there every single day and retooling the bakery and getting the approvals and everything. Luckily, during COVID, you were kind of given a longer leash to do some of this stuff, and money was more readily available to make these kind of changes. So that was really helpful. If that wouldn't have happened and we were stuck doing the same thing, I don't know where we'd be at right now.
True luck, preparation, and then the opportunity came in. But the one thing I do want to bring up that you talked about in the beginning of your story was that you and your partner and the two sides of the business. Russell Brunson always talks about, to have a successful company, you need to have the attractive character and you need to have the operator. And I'm assuming that the baker, your partner there, was more of the attractive character that kind of was in the face of people, showing the cooking, and you were the operator with the numbers on the back end. Can you talk about how important it is to have those two sides of the brain and those two sides of the business, the logical thinker and then the emotional base or the creative thinker, kind of coming together as one, and how you guys work together to be able to, I'm curious if there was any pushback when there was an opportunity to get this big from the baker side or from your side, of how that mesh came together and how you guys really work as a unit?
Yeah, well, I would say that's generally true. That you kind of need both those sides, and it can be a detriment and it can also be a benefit. And it's like focusing on the benefit side as much as you possibly can will make it as successful as possible. If you're only focusing on your differences and why they're differences, then you're going to have a problem. We've definitely had disagreements, as you've alluded to. It's like, let's do bigger. Here's just one very practical example. As you said, he's more of the creative type, creatively focused, and there's like toppings that we'll put on each one of on top of each one of the cakes. And I'm over here saying, hey, look, those are really beautiful, what you made, but you need to be able to do 1,000 in this amount of time. You can't go in and individually decorate one and be placing these things, because it'll make it so expensive that no one will be able to buy it. So there's like a push-pull between making it as creative and as beautiful as possible, but also making it as efficient a process as possible, without ideally losing as much of that beauty and creativity that you possibly can.
I love that. And it's a great way of breaking it down, right? Because I think we have that in every situation, even outside of restaurants. You look into, say, home improvement companies, and the entrepreneurs and the business owners listening to this right now, right? You could probably find this in your company, in the separation that you have in between. You can use home improvement as an example, where someone wants to do hours and hours of difficult work, but you have to go into the scope of work. And he's talking about the same process here. You're trying to make the best food possible, but you have to make sure that it's not a $30 dessert, a pickup dessert, right? So I'm curious, as you're developing and as you're growing, are you still in those same 25 supermarkets? How have you expanded past that once you've really locked those position in?
Yeah, so we're still in those same supermarkets. And in fact, they helped us get into a larger distributor. So we were working with a pretty regional distributor. And this is kind of a general path of anyone in CPG, very local regional distributor. And then that initial chain, who's been with us, like I said, from the very beginning, got us into like a national distributor, like a very small area of the national distributor. So they're going to take us, now we're mostly in Seattle and Portland. They're going to work their way down the I-5 corridor into like Sacramento, Southern Oregon, down into LA, and pretty much everywhere on the I-5 that touches. They're also talking about interest in Colorado and kind of moving further east that way. So we're really focused right now on just solidly nailing the West Coast and then seeing where the next opportunity will come from.
Love that. And as the operator of the business, are you looking and are you really getting granular about which location you're going to build? I'm assuming the next warehouse and distribution facility from. Are you understanding the cost of the logistics from the travel of each position? Where does your next steps go into in this business?
Yeah, so bigger than any time in the past, the logistics is definitely the main focus here. So we've got the product down, we have the packaging down, we have everything down. The logistics, the cost of the logistics, palletizing product versus just, sending off a few cases here and there to a regional distributor. These are all like very serious considerations, and they all have their costs associated. So like having just as simple as like having a spreadsheet, just working on your computer and saying, okay, let's make sure that these aren't getting wildly out of control as we're having these negotiations. Because they'll always want to ask, hey, what's the price for this? And I have to go back to them and I go, what to the distributors, and I'm like, well, what are you going to charge me for this, and what are you going to charge me for this, and what are you going to charge me for this? Because I can't give you a price if I don't know what all my costs are. So it seems like a very basic thing, but you can kind of get excited and lost in the moment as you're growing, and it can turn into the worst thing for you if all of those all those costs and the cost of logistics and the time and making sure everything is precise doesn't add up.
Vincent, and golden nugget for the listeners here, because we've brought this up in the podcast before about being a business owner is truly understanding your numbers. And I can't tell you how many experiences I've heard just like that, where they've gotten overly excited over growth and they've put in too much effort and emphasis in the growth and not what it really takes to stay consistent and stay alive as a business. If we don't have cash flow, positive cash flow in the business, it's very difficult to survive unless you have that outside funding, and they still look for their money eventually, right? So you have to have your numbers set in place. I want to go back a little bit to the product and your USP, your unique selling proposition. One of the biggest things that I see across all of this is the clean label. Can you break down that ideology of a clean label and what that really means?
Yeah, so that's something that was very important to us from the very beginning, and there's kind of been like slow growth into that in the broader market versus just like specialty retail or whatever. I know, for example, Walmart's has like a pretty good organics program now, but essentially clean label, if your listeners aren't aware, is having, no preservatives, no artificial ingredients, no artificial dyes, etc. in the product. Doesn't necessarily mean organic. We're not totally 100% organic yet, but we are looking at it. But yeah, just removing all those things, like instead of putting red dye number 40 into your strawberry Tres Leches, we use like beet powder or something, and you mix that up, and you would assume there'd be a little funky taste, but it's diluted so much that you don't notice it. So those kind of little workarounds that are like food-based colorings, or everything is food-based as opposed to like an oil-based cake. We do an egg-based sponge cake. All those little things go into creating the clean label. And especially where we started, the first store where we started, that was like a requirement of theirs. And a lot of the specialty retailers we've gotten into has been a requirement or a direction that they've been going kind of slowly over time.
And help me understand this, because I'm right with you. I have a little 1.5-year-old daughter. I'm reading the back of the labels of everything that I read. I don't want no dyes or red 40s or anything of that nature. But what is the differentiation of cost when you get into that? Are you seeing a huge increase, over 100% increase, just because you want to keep it clean?
It definitely costs more money, and that's why we've been more successful in the specialty retailers and kind of maybe the higher end stores, is because those shoppers can, they're willing to accept that cost for the higher quality ingredients. Because you can get a Tres Leches cake right now at you can get one at Walmart, and you can get one at a lot of other grocers. But if you flip it around and you look at that ingredient label, I mean, it's almost like a completely shelf stable dessert, because the amount of oils and artificial preservatives that are in it. Ours won't last as long on the shelf, so that's also going to add to the cost, because you have this spoilage that can occur if it doesn't sell. Thankfully, ours, we slack out from a frozen state, so generally we don't have a lot of spoilage. But it's something to consider if you're going into the clean label food manufacturing.
And it's a great testament to the entrepreneurs and business owners listening to this right now. It's a higher cost. It's got a higher waste capability. But because they stuck to their guns as a company and decided, we are going to do this clean, we're going to do this in a way that's good for people, and we're going to stay to this even at mass production and as we grow across the West, they open themselves new opportunities for new locations, because that's what businesses are looking for. It's where the world is going to. So making sure that you understand where your unique selling proposition is as a business, how you differentiate yourself, and sticking to your guns when that happens, and making sure that even when you're looking as an operator and you're looking at the distribution across the West and you're saying, well, it'd be a little more shelf stable, it'd last longer, or reduce our costs a little bit so we'd have higher margins. It's not what they built the business on. So they avoid it and they stay with what they know. It's a beautiful testament. You talked a little bit about where you're going in the future of really expanding across the West Coast and going down that highway there. But can you talk to me the overall grand plan of, say, the next 3 years, the next 1 to 3 years, barring there's no crazy COVID or something of that nature that happens?
I know, and then we have to create a third business. So my ideal, so it maybe in like the next year and a half, and I'm patient. Okay, I'm not like trying to be everywhere all at once, because I understand, like, our growth has been, I wouldn't say slow, but it's been conservative. We kind of have chosen where we're going to go. And there are some deals that we have rejected because it was just too much, too quick. And so I would like to see very firmly established on the West Coast. So I'd like to see as many, if not all, of the specialty retailers, national co-ops, natural food stores on the West Coast, from, Washington to Oregon, and then kind of slowly move east towards, like Idaho, probably pick up a few accounts there. Colorado seems to be a fairly big market. We have a good amount of interest there. And I know we already have quite a bit of interest on the East Coast, but I'm not trying to spread myself too thin. So it'll be analyzing how well that West Coast, those West Coast sales are doing, and then making, kind of judicious expansions into the East Coast.
Very smart, and taking it step by step. I mean, again, we brought this up earlier in this, is that making sure you control your growth so that you stay to your individuality and your structure as a business, and you don't look at that shiny spoon and get so excited about the growth of it that you forget about the base hard numbers, and ensuring that if you are going into, say, the East Coast or the Midwest, you do it with success and you do it in a position where you could actually grow the business. I love that. Let's take Tres Lecheria and put it to the side a little bit and talk a little bit more about Vincent, the entrepreneur. I would love to understand kind of some of the listeners here. One of the biggest questions that we have is, and as all entrepreneurs, kind of are trial by fire, or we're created like diamonds, where it's done under pressure, right? It's got to be the right pressure and the right system. But we have these trials and tribulations that we go through in our careers and our systems that kind of make us who we are as the entrepreneurs. Do you have a story, Vincent, that you could share with the listeners here of something that you guys went through as a business, or you went through as an entrepreneur, that was a lesson to you that you kind of take today that makes you think differently of how you do business?
Oh man, yeah. All of the challenges kind of run through my mind as soon as we're going to make a decision or make a move or make a pivot. And as you grow larger, like, using those lessons effectively is definitely helpful. So it's, when you're in it, it's like the worst feeling and the worst negative that could possibly happen. But if you come through it, and some businesses don't, through no fault of their own. Absolutely. I saw a lot of restaurants, go out of business during COVID, and that's just unfortunate. But if you get through it, you can definitely apply those in the future. So I mentioned having to restructure the entire business during COVID. I mean, that was one of our biggest challenges, just bar none. The very first challenge that we had was when we opened the bakery. We started paying rent on this space, and I had thought it was like a cafe before. I think we were kind of led to believe that it was. And it turns out it wasn't. It was never, it was regulatorily speaking, it was not approved for that. And it was not how it was operating. It was just operating as like a storefront. So we had to do what's known as a change of use. And when you have to do a change of use, you have to bring everything up to the most current code. Even if, the building was built in like 1919, which ours was. So you have to like shoehorn in all these new requirements in this old building that might not be able to accommodate it very well. And that it took our costs from, like, I kind of had a set number of what I was, acceptable laying out for the first year, and quadrupled it almost immediately before any money started coming in. So I had to go into my personal savings and be like, okay, if I still believe in this, we got to we got to start paying, like we have to do this work. So we had to do a lot of work on the building, a lot of like the bathroom, like make sure it was ADA compliant, make sure that the hallways were wide enough, all these kind of things that were just like completely out of compliance. Sprinkler system, which no other unit in the building has. So like tens of thousands of dollars there. So now it's like never, maybe this is a cynical take, but I never take anyone's word for anything at all. I'm like, thank you for the information that you're providing me. Show me where you found this. Let me see the document. I'm going to read through everything. We got to get this signed right now. Okay. If it's that fast, then that's too fast. I need a couple of days to review this. And it's never been a problem. So if anyone's trying to like force you to do something quickly, automatically your senses should go up. But that's like just the first lesson, the first hard lesson. I've taken a lot away from that one.
Quadrupled in cost. Absolutely crazy. I mean, tough to hear, but I mean, the fact that you guys have come out of it in the position that you're in now is truly that reference of pressure makes diamonds, right? It's got to have the right people, got to have the right carbon structuring. But once you put people like yourself underneath an immense level of pressure, beautiful things can come out of it. So that's awesome to hear. My final question for you, Vincent, is how do you find your Kaizen? For the listeners out there that haven't heard the term before, Kaizen is a Japanese business philosophy that means 1% progression every day in both business and in self. As entrepreneurs, we constantly have to stay on top of the ball of the new trends that are coming in, from the new regulatory systems that you have for distribution to what products are selling the best in the supermarkets right now, and how you can differentiate yourself from that. You, as an entrepreneur and the owner of this company, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you are constantly improving, staying on top of the ball, and working for Tres Lecheria to improve every single day?
Oh man, it's a lot, but I'll try to be quick. So first, you have to take care of yourself and like your health and your family. So like that has to be taken care of. Like you can't have all this chaos in your personal life and expect to be effective, doing your business. So, exercise, eat as clean as possible and take care of your family. Regarding the business, get involved in everything that you possibly can. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you can overwhelm yourself with stuff that just takes away time, but you won't know about the things that are useful and the things that are not useful until you've at least tried it a little bit. So get involved in all those communities. Ask people questions. I ask so many questions. People probably think I'm the dumbest person in the world, but you know what? Like I'm just going to keep asking, because it helps me to get better. When I learn something, I have it, I'm good, I know it. And then it makes even the things that I learn clearer. So it fills in gaps. Even if I think I know something, just asking questions about something that I might absolutely know about, I'll fill in whatever gaps in knowledge that I do have, how something works. And then that allows you to be a little bit more flexible. It allows you to respond to different problems that look kind of similar much more easily. So asking questions, take care of yourself as much as possible, and get involved. Get involved in whatever community that you're in. You'll find grants, you'll find opportunities, you'll find employees. Like those are the biggest.
Get involved. I love that. Couldn't agree more. I'm well endowed with that in my company, where I'm absolutely nerding out every part of the business.
Perfect.
But the fact that you're doing the same in such a wide distribution of the company, as well as you grow and you're developing that, and you're still involved with every aspect of it, from the 25 locations that you initially expanded to the whole West Coast that you're going after, is awesome to hear. Vincent Bereta, the owner of Tres Lecheria, thank you so much for your time. If there was somebody over on the West Coast and they want to try one of your delicious desserts, how would they be able to find it? Where is a good place for them to get connected with you and to be able to try some of your food?
Well, please, yeah, I'd appreciate it. You can go on our website, treslecheria.com. You can email us at info@treslecheria.com. Or if you own a grocery store, we're in Tony's and UNFI. So you can speak to your UNFI rep and get our products into your store right now.
I absolutely love that. And all that content information is going to be found below in the description. If you guys have finished this video, thank you so much. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Kaizen podcast.